This is 139 Fallingwater by Frank Lloyd Wright, from 1936 to 1939, of reinforced concrete, sandstone, steel, and glass. There are 3 images for this piece. It is considered America's most famous house and Frank Lloyd Wright, the world's greatest architect. The big concept is that Frank Lloyd Wright had lived in Japan for 3 years, and he appreciated how architecture was nestled in with nature, and that the architecture bent to the whim of nature, so that he wanted nature and the building to become one, and the building not to overtake the location but to be part of it. And so when designing Fallingwater, that's what really comes to mind. So in terms of form, there's a lot to look at. First is, this is a waterfall. You can see it right here. And the house is built at the edge of the waterfall. So the building it's a home. It's a weekend home for a family that Frank Lloyd Wright built or designed when he was 67. It has cantilevered terraces, and these terraces then are designed to look like they are a part of that falling water falling over the waterfall, but they're made of concrete that's reinforced with steel, and so that's called ferroconcrete. Difficult because that concrete needs repair frequently, the engineers say. And you can look at the image, and you can see here in this design that the house is just kind of flowing in with this creek. It's called Bear Run Creek. In terms of form, you can also see this has some real vertical and horizontal lines that make this house what it is. And this model, I'd like you to point out just the use of materials. If you look at the terraces, the floor of the terraces mimics the floor around this entire site. So it really becomes one with the environment. And the blue painting on top, right? I know this river or creek does not look blue, but that would be the notion of water. There is behind the house itself, there is a guest house, and there is a servant quarters. Next to those two is a spring-fed swimming pool, and then if the swimming pool overflowed, the water would just run down to the Bear Run Creek. In terms of content on the inside, there's a lot to see as well. The house was started with this boulder. Do you see? I've got another image of it, but the Kaufman family that used this for a weekend home paid modern day value of $2 million to have it built. They recall to Frank Lloyd Wright that they would come out here and they would sit on top of this boulder. And so Frank Lloyd Wright essentially built the house around that boulder and said that boulder top will be where we mark the floor. So here is the floor, which is designed to look like the water of the creek, and the favorite boulder is to stick out, protrude over it. Here is that fireplace. These are the boulders that stick out. This is a Cherokee red kettle, and it's used to heat wine. You can see here it is in its kind of stored position, and then it can be moved, curved to hang over the fire here. In terms of content, Frank Lloyd Wright wanted no separation really between the interior of the house and nature. Now that's really hard to do unless you just don't have any windows, and this is upstate New York, so it can get really cold. But look at this. This is the corner of the window, and I think you can kind of hardly see a seam here, but this is where the two glass panes meet from either side, yet it's it seems seamless so that the outdoor is right there. He was so specific here in terms of content that the trellis, which is also made of concrete, had to be curved to accommodate an existing tree. The epitome of really making this fit in with nature like the Japanese. And then we have stairs here that go down to this lower landing where you can then step into the water. Now, the house sits over the water so that as the water flows down, you can see it behind me, it flows through the house into Bear Creek. And this is the path to the guest house, which is designed with the local sandstone and even the covering so that the people can walk on not bothered by rain, by snow. That also has the image or the mimicking of this sandstone. So this is not a knockoff, but it's made in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, and that's just north of Chicago, where Frank Lloyd Wright was essentially located. It was for sale in 2020, and I forgot how many million it was for sale for. But we've got 10 terraces and 3 fireplaces if you're interested in buying this little baby. Or you could go to Taliesin in Wisconsin. This was Frank Lloyd Wright's famous building here. There's a book written about this. And Taliesin West in Arizona. And you can see clearly how he combines the local materials to make the house fit in with its environment. So the function of Fallingwater by Frank Lloyd Wright is it was made for this Kaufman family who lived in Pittsburgh. He was a businessman, and the other function is that it integrates architecture into nature. And just look at that water flowing underneath the house. Really cool. So that's Fallingwater by Frank Lloyd Wright, 1936 to 1939. Reinforced concrete, sandstone, steel, and glass.